pleased to welcome Ms. Tatiana Antonelli Abella, the CEO and founder of Goumbook. Who doesn't know Tatiana, one of the thought leaders in the sustainability. Thank you very much for having us. MENA Oceans is in its second year. What can you tell us about this event? Why are you having it?
Thank you, Sal, for being here with us today. So yes, we're very excited for the second edition of the MENA Oceans Summit. What does it mean? Well, it means that there's a need for the region to come together and collaborate on science, on blue economy, and on governance and policy to really advance oceans health, specifically in the region.
Yeah, as you know, Goumbook has so many projects. You are into plastic, you are into, of course, fighting plastic, you are also in agriculture, and today oceans. How are you linking all your efforts under the same path for the society?
Thank you for asking this question, because I think this is a bit of the storytelling part of Goumbook, right? When we started was back 15 years ago. What I realized is that there was very little understanding of where we live and the environment that surrounds us. So the first initiative was to plant an indigenous tree, the gaff tree.
Yes.
But when you talk about indigenous trees, you have to talk about non-indigenous trees. And the fact that here in the region we plant a lot of trees that consume a lot of water. So when you start talking about water, we live in the desert, it's a very water scarce region. So where is that water coming from? Desalination.
Yes.
And this is where we end up talking about the oceans and the impact of desalination on the oceans.
Yes.
Later on, another campaign was related, as you said, to plastics.
Yeah.
What is most of the data related to the oceans?
Yeah.
We know that plastics end up there. And yes, some of it we can see it. Most of it breaks down into microparticles, but then evaporation, these particles, microparticles end up in the air. It rains, it snows, and these microparticles have been found all over the world. So again, we're talking about the oceans and how it's interlinked to everything around us. Later on, we started talking about climate change, and at the same time, climate action. What can we do here in the region? Planting mangroves.
Yes.
It's part of the national pledge. Many organizations are working to support the Ministry of Climate Change and Environment in this goal to plant 100 million mangroves. So again, we're talking about an element, a specific ecosystem that belongs to the coastline.
Yes.
So again, we're talking about oceans, the importance of these forests, how they sequester the carbon through the soil, but also the role of, creating a habitat for so many different species. So last year, when we heard that finally at COP28 there would be an ocean pavilion, we thought, you know what, why are we not taking oceans to the forefront? Instead of always being a sideline topic, we need to bring it to the forefront. But are we scientists? No. Are we researchers? No. We need to bring together
all
community.
the stakeholders.
Exactly.
All right, so that's why we are seeing from the UAE, we are seeing the United Nations, we are seeing Sorbonne, we saw the French ambassador and all that. How can we nurture further the knowledge sharing from Europe to here? And what is the role of the civil society in this regard, for example?
You mentioned knowledge, and I think this is the key. And it's at all levels.
Because here in the oceans, for example, like France, for example, it had Cousteau around 60 years ago, 50 years ago. Here in the region, for example, it's something new to us. How can we bring that faster? It is growing, but how can we expedite the process of learning?
Question. I think what we have here, what is very precious, is the culture and the heritage.
Yeah.
And the younger generations of the Gulf and the region, they've seen their grandfather, their grandparents, the way they were living, nurturing nature.
Yeah.
And it is a coastal environment. So they've seen fishermen, they've seen pearl divers, so they understand the value of the ocean, and at the same time, they need to be empowered by science.
Yeah.
They need to study, they need to understand it, to be part of the blue economy doesn't mean that you can only be a researcher.
Yeah.
You can still become a lawyer. You
Yes.
can still become, an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
But your focus can be around the blue economy. You can bring innovation.
Yeah.
You can start new businesses that will actually accelerate that. But it needs to start from the knowledge. The knowledge of where we are, the fact that it's a very rich region in terms of biodiversity.
Absolutely.
When we launched the MENA Ocean Network at COP, the question I was asked was like, but why? Why? What's there in the Middle East to protect?
Yes.
And this was really the moment I understood we were on the right path
Yes.
to bring everyone together and say, guys, we actually have one of the biggest population of dugongs in the world, one of the biggest populations of bottlenose dolphins, biggest population of whale sharks in the world. People are not aware of this. They're not aware of this region being an open lab, of having species who thrive at 37 degrees temperature of water when other species at 30, 32 struggle and unfortunately don't make it. So there is a great opportunity to bridge the challenges we face, but actually the opportunities we have for the rest of the world, to Europe, to the US, and to Asia.
Yeah, we're seeing very good points. We're seeing basically the UAE and the GCC in general are trying really their best to align their policies with the rest of the world, especially the European Union, Switzerland, and the other parts of the world. And we have seen some really big new basically laws, the ban on plastic bags and the others. How do you see the top, what are the top decisions that are needed to protect the oceans and basically seashores in this part of the world?
Well, policy
in
is
our
key,
region.
definitely, but I think we need to standardize this policy.
Yes.
So this is where to align our efforts globally, not only the region to Europe or
because
to the US.
seas and waters are something global.
Exactly, and the policies need to be able to have a specific impact. So if we take different type of policies and we don't standardize the effort, it's not going to have the same impact. So we need to work together, understand what are the priorities, how can some countries help others. We have a lot of diversity. We need to help the vulnerable communities. We need to help the nations who are actually suffering already today. We need to look into adaptation, not just mitigation. And we need to somehow feel that this is a global effort, a joint effort. It's not about a country, it's not about an organization, it's about a better future.
We saw His Excellency Nicolas, the Ambassador of France, talking about the Nice event next June in France. It will be a big event. We know that the UAE is invited, so we do expect some strong participation. What are the plans in this regard? How do you foresee the participation of the UAE, not only of the government, but also at the grassroots level?
So from what I heard this morning, and this was very interesting from His Excellency the French Ambassador, is that they will be able to cater to different stakeholders. So yes, there will be UNOC 3, the main conference, but then 3 events prior that will tackle specific stakeholders. So one is the scientific community. It's a call to action to more than 2,000 researchers and scientists to come together, and the main message is action. How can we drive from science real action to the oceans? And in terms of the UAE and the region, there's a lot of research going on, a lot of scientific evidence.
We're seeing Sorbonne Abu Dhabi is here present, for example. So.
And they've launched their institute, Oceanic Institute, which is really symbolic, because for them to come to the region and bring their researchers here, it means there's something here that's really valuable. So this is the first thing where the UAE and the region can contribute. Another event will be dedicated to the mayors and all the different cities around the world that live in coastal areas. And the region is,
as you know, UAE is full of coast,
on the coast. So this is another call to action to come and participate and bring facts, case studies on what are the problems or the issues, but also what has been done to actually adapt to, for example, the level of...
and private sector?
Private sector, I think, for me, is the king.
Yes, so that's what my question is about.
They're very powerful, and I think in the region, this is something that is very special. The UAE and the other countries have learned to work very closely with the private sector as partners.
Yeah.
They work together, they understand how to support each other through policy, but also they need the private sector to step in
Absolutely.
and support with funding.
Yeah.
And this is something unique to the region that is not happening everywhere else.
Tatiana, thank you very much for being with us today.
Thank you, sir.